Back in the saddle once again. It is the show that shakes the Southland Clemson sports talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 in the Midlands, around the world on the iHeart Radio application. Thank you for hanging out and being a part of the program. Holy moly, what a day it was yesterday. Again, Thursday afternoon, no Tim Bray today, but we will be joined by Roddy Jones. And if you're watching, I know I don't have the video up yet. It's coming here momentarily. So yesterday, we had media availability with Dabo Swinney. And most of you know this, but I work a full-time job in addition to doing this program. And so busy all day, busy all week, busy around the clock, literally. If you ask my wife, she would tell you my husband works way too much. And so for whatever reason, I just sitting here listening to Dabo Swinney's press conference and meeting with the media. And Dabo Swinney, he gets asked about players and how they're utilizing, the guys this week after such a rugged matchup against Georgia Tech. And so, when you go into these things, like, you got some things that you're thinking about, but not everything is something that doesn't just come to you on a whim. And sometimes the questions that you have, people are asking. Like, a natural question that somebody may have asked and they didn't might have had to do with Lynn J. Dixon or the running backs and this, that, and the other. But as I'm kind of going through the position groups and things, in my brain, I thought Trenton Simpson. I was like, man, Trenton Simpson got the targeting penalty in the Georgia Tech game. And now that Georgia Tech game, in fairness, was about 17 hours. That game was about 17 hours. It took forever for that game to be played. It was awful. Just the length of the game, the way it all worked out, this, that, and the other. And so some people have asked me in the past, they're like, is it hard to ask a question to Dabo Swinney or these guys? And no, it's really not. What is difficult sometimes is making sure you got everything you wanted out when you asked the question. For example, when I asked Tony Elliott after the game if Clemson thought about running a fly pattern and throwing the ball out of bounds to run out the clock, I couldn't remember at the end if I had asked about throwing the ball out of bounds. And David Hood, who writes for TigerNet, tweeted something about somebody asked Tony Elliott about running a fly pattern. I thought, and David and I are good friends, I thought David was not making fun, but I thought he was like saying, can you believe somebody would ask that? In reality, David Hood's thoughts on it were really about the fact that Clemson hadn't run a fly pattern the whole game against Georgia Tech. And again, I couldn't remember if I had said throw the ball out of bounds. So it's not hard. And for whatever reason, I was kicking around the other day. When you ask a bad question, 803-450-0086. When you ask a bad question, sometimes you start to feel this like, God, I'm such a moron. Like, what am I thinking? And so I went back to a question that I had asked Trevor Lawrence a year ago. And I didn't mean it the way I asked it. And in retrospect, I wish I would have asked it differently. I believe it was after the Miami game. There were a couple of plays in there where Trevor's just kind of doing his thing, just being Trevor being Trevor. All of a sudden, Miami player takes a cheap shot on him. And then Trevor hulks up. And that had been like a theme throughout his career. Like, guys would give him a cheap shot, Trevor would hulk up. By the way, if you don't subscribe to our YouTube channel, please go do that, man. We are closing in on 600. Oh, baby. You guys are cooking. At 1,000, we might get there, but you got to go like it right now. Haven't checked the numbers today, by the way. But Trevor would take a hit in a game, morph into a new guy. Clemson's losing to Ohio State in the playoffs 2 years ago. 16-0. Trevor gets hit, morphs into a new guy. Clemson comes back and wins that game. And so my thought process as a human being was, I wonder if these players think that he's soft. Like, if they hit him hard enough, he won't be able to answer the bell. And so when you say to somebody, are you soft? Or if people think you're soft, it's got a completely different connotation than if you ask somebody, hey, Trevor, Lawton Swan, Clemson Sports Talk, do you think teams question your toughness? You know, something like when you ask about somebody's toughness versus the thing that I ask him, hey, Trevor, Lawton Swan, Clemson Sports Talk, you make things look so effortless and easy on the field. Do you think sometimes people think you're soft? And he looked at me like, what? And the point of my question was merely, he plays so well. It's hard, I think, for people on the outside to go, you know what? That's a tough dude. I think he looked so good on the field. The way he played the game, just spinning the bean down the field, no problem. Casual, laid back, laissez-faire, whatever you want to call it. And so I thought it was a legitimate question to ask him at the time. The problem was I used the word soft and not the word question your toughness. Do guys think they can hurt you? Are you tougher than you appear? Like, that was what I wanted here. And the response I got was the flip of the hair. Yeah, I don't know. And then, so on my end, you're just like, bad question. Well, yesterday topped it all. It was a long day Saturday. Nobody can deny that. That game felt like 2 days worth of college football. And so I just had to laugh it off because there has now become a meme thanks to my question to Dabo Swinney yesterday. And I put out the 3 stages of a bad question. And and honest to goodness, I think that these were the stages that Dabo Swinney had in the midst of my question. There was being perplexed. There was a moment of, is this question serious? And then I think last but not least, there was after the answer and my response, there was like this moment where Dabo Swinney was like, got him. Like, Dabo Swinney, like any coach, probably feels like more often than not, fair or foul, that some reporters try to get him. Try to get them in a situation where they say something that makes news, and I'm not saying it shouldn't make news, but perhaps that that it's a moment or whatever that kind of becomes a national headline. Dabo Swinney said this, and people are like, "Oh, what an idiot, Dabo Swinney." So when Coach Swinney gets a chance to flip it, even on a guy like me, come on, Coach. He took advantage, and it's completely on me. So I'll show you the tweet I put out because these are the faces that Dabo Swinney made yesterday. These are the 3 faces of a bad question. Perplexed? Are you serious? When he looked over at Ross Taylor, like, what is going on? And then look at this smug look of excitement after he says to me, do you know something I don't? All right, so here's how this goes down. I'm listening to these comments. I'm listening to people talk about everything. And I think to myself, oh yeah, I wonder what it's been like this week for Trenton Simpson. Didn't think Simpson got taken out in the first half. Didn't even bother to consider that aspect of my question. I merely thought, man, what is it like? Like in my brain, I'm going, you know what my listeners would want to know? What's it like when you got to go into a game? Now, look, we've seen situations like this a little bit recently, but it's always nice to do when it's a fresh, hey, beginning of the year. You got 7 days until the next game. Let's talk about it. Like you don't have this whole off season or anything like that. Like it's next week. And so I thought I would ask a question about Trenton Simpson. And I honestly still think that it was a fairly decent question on the surface of if you wanted to know how Clemson handles a certain dynamic that is preparing to play one guy in one half and one guy in the second. Problem was, for me, Trenton Simpson's targeting penalty took place at near the end of the first half, which means he'll be playing the whole game. So here it is in all its glory.
Hey, Coach, Lawton Swan. So with a week like this, how do you handle something like Trenton Simpson where you know he's going to be out in the first half and going to play in the second half? I mean, how do you guys specifically handle things like that in preparation? Because that's a unique situation.
I think he's playing in the first half. Unless I missed something. You know something that I don't know?
Wait.
Oh, no, maybe. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, my goodness. And all I could think in the moment when I'm looking at Dabo Swinney, all I could think in that moment was what, like in your brain, you're talking and I'm looking at him on the Zoom and something in my brain is registering that maybe Simpson's thing happened in the first half because of the way he's looking. And then when he says what he says, and then this is all I can say back to him.
Maybe, yeah, sorry.
So then Larry Williams, who writes for Tiger Illustrated, makes a GIF of it, comparing it to the GIF of Jimmy Butler. And now I'm seeing it around on social media, and I'm like, so I got the question of the day. What's a worse question? What is a question worse than the one Swanny asked Dabo Swinney? Like, what could I have possibly asked him worse than that? I just, honestly, that game was so long. Trenton Simpson went out. Then we had like a 2.5 hour delay. Then we played like 32 seconds. Then we immediately went into the third quarter. By the way, shout out to this user on social media. His name is Brock. Brock said, Swanny, who could even tell what the first or second or third half was? He said that game was delivered directly from Hades via Amazon Prime. Thank you, Brock. I needed the support. I tell you, if you got a worse question I could have asked, 803-450-0086. 803-450-0086. Just like I think you just embrace it, right? You just have to embrace it. The game was so weird. Like if that was a standard game, 2 halves of football, I don't think in my mind I even hesitate. But the general question is still legit. Like I'd like to know, and that's what I will ask when it actually happens. I might go in there and say, Dabo Swinney, Lawton Swan, finally. How do you handle a situation like this where you got a player you know he's going to be out in the first half and then he's going to play in the second half in a game? Like, do you split reps completely? Do you start do you at practice, do you go with your number one guy? Like, how do you handle it? Like, that's what, like, I was asking for you, the listener. It's a legit question to ask. It's a great question to ask. It's just not a great question to ask when it happened at the end of the first half and you forgot.
Maybe, yeah, sorry.
Maybe, yeah, sorry. qualify. And then you have this moment where you're just like so red-faced. And David Hood texts me the emoji with the two big eyes. Like he knows I've just misspoken. And so, I'm like, oh God, never going to live it down. And then here we go. And then it's out there. All right. So there it was. 803-450-0086. 803-450-0086. Mark listening to the program. He says, Swanny, I love that you can laugh at yourself. Dude, let me tell you, sometimes you got to do it to keep from crying. I mean, because the last thing you want him to do is go, boy, this guy, we got to pull him off the beat. He's an idiot. I was, as I said, they were talking about players. And so I'm going through the list in my brain of guys that, I'm interested in, kind of following. And Simpson's name just pops into my head. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'd love to hear what's going on with Trenton Simpson. I mean, he got the targeting penalty last week. Let's see. And then you also have this whole thing that I am the anti-targeting guy, really, in college football at this point anyway. So, in my opinion, Trenton Simpson shouldn't have been out for any portion of Clemson's game. And it's a very weird rule because the targeting penalty happened in the first half of the game, even if it happens with 1 second left in the first half. And this is where it's really, really a bad rule. You can be out 1 second. Like that happens with 0.0 colon or whatever that is. 0.1 left on the clock. 1 second left on the clock. And that would count for a guy. He's out for that half, and then he's out for the other. So for some guys, the penalty is 15 minutes and 1 second. And then if it happens on the opening kickoff of a ball game, that guy's out for 59 minutes and 59 minutes and 59 seconds or whatever that ends up being. I am no math Einstein. You guys know this. Don't ask me to do high-level math. What is the worst question, though? Coach, it really looked like Lynn J. Dixon gave you guys a spark last weekend. How many carries you think he'll be getting for you this weekend? Like, that's a lot worse, right? That's a lot worse. Give me one worse. Looks like we may be having some internet issues. That doesn't stop Nick, though, from getting penalized. He's in the box. Nick, thank you for sharing the show. Appreciate it, buddy. Again, Clemson will take on NC State, the Wolfpack, this weekend on the road in Raleigh. Their first true road game. Dabo Swinney said his ears were ringing from all of the sound that they were pumping in to the stadium, into the practice facility to just kind of prepare themselves for what it will certainly be a hostile situation. I think for a couple of reasons. One, most notably, in my opinion, is the fact that NC State can smell blood in the water. Like Clemson is not some wounded animal. Not some wounded animal. but they do look vulnerable. And I would imagine that the NC State Wolfpack fans will have that in mind as well when they show up. 803-450-0086. Linda says, Swanny, do you want me to share this one or not? It happens. I'm telling you, it happens. It happens. Oh, that was so good. So funny. So funny. All right, so Bent Zero chimes into the program real quick. We're going to be up against a break. He says, Swanny, I got to hear that clip again. He said, tough. I'll play it next. Stay with us.
Now, Columbia's most dependable traffic, sponsored by Pope Davis Tire and Automotive, home of the best tire prices in Columbia, guaranteed. Fox Sports Radio 1400 traffic.
Traffic types include Pine Belt Road at